Hi, everyone. Brian Reyes, Sustainability Planner with Marin County. And so going to present to you on preliminary findings of a REACH code tracking project or analysis where we're tracking impact of our REACH codes on residential new construction. So next slide, please. Given our time, I'm just kind of sort of zoom through it, and there was some animation there, but essentially you all have similar targets. We're a carbon neutral future by 2045. With a 60% reduction plus sequestration by 2030 and carbon neutral by 2045. So that sort of sets a framework for our discussion today. Next slide, please. Here's our typical emissions pie chart that you all see and probably create yourselves. And the upshot here is building energy is about 34% of our building emissions, and the largest share is 52% transportation. Next slide, please. This is showing the decarbonization of our buildings are important, and you all kind of seen this before, and natural gas today makes up the biggest share in Marin County. It's 80% of our share of emissions compared to our electricity. Shout out to Marin Clean Energy for helping us decarbonize the grid in addition to the state's decarbonization efforts. Next again. All right, so our green building requirements in Marin County, they vary. So essentially they can be bucketed into 3 different code status types, as it were. So in the blue up top, we have ours, County of Marin, unincorporated, as well as Mill Valley and San Anselmo, Calgary Tier 1 with enhanced energy efficiency requirements. And we decided in that bucket last code cycle to go electric preferred. And I'll explain that a little later. In the green below, we have 4 jurisdictions that also go beyond state code with enhanced energy efficiency requirements. No electric preferred pathways, and 2 of the jurisdictions decided to exclude additional energy efficiency requirements. Notice that recently Fairfax has adopted an all-electric for new constructed buildings, and the first of our jurisdictions in Marin County to do so. And the last gray bucket there, we have 5 jurisdictions that did not adopt REACH codes during the last cycle. So they're basically meeting minimum state codes. And note that below, Sausalito is considering all electric, with also considering maybe additional efficiency requirements next code cycle. Ultimately, the upshot of this slide is saying we have as many of experience in your counties when multiple jurisdictions. There is a wide variety of codes out there. And so like, as you all can imagine and know that the development and building community warranted gets confused. So what we do in Marin County is we try to align all our codes as best as possible. So next slide, please. So diving into specifically Marin County or County Marin, the unincorporated parts, we have a Calgary Tier 1 REACH code, as Karen explained earlier, with electric preferred enhanced energy conservation requirements. So let's just unpack that just a little bit. So Calgary Tier 1 is a set of standards from Title 24, plus going beyond the requirements according to the state's REACH code framework. So in practice, that's a checklist to meet not only energy efficiency requirements, but also the variety of standards of green building features, permeable paving, stormwater runoff, etc. So we decided to go Tier 1. This is our good, better, best. And so that's our better. It means that the project will go 15% above state minimum standards. So that's pretty green. And then what we decided is to go electric preferred enhanced energy efficiency requirements. So this refers to additional requirements in addition to the Calgary Tier 1 standards. To this end, we enforce requirements with a dual goal of energy use reduction, but also greenhouse gas reduction in mind. So this code is relevant to our local conditions, supports those aggressive GHG reduction goals I had up front. Briefly, this requirement has 3 tiers attempting to incentivize electrification, in which the first tier is all electric. The second tier is limited mixed fuel, which essentially allows only gas only for cooking and or fireplaces. And the third tier is this mixed fuel allowing for both gas and electric. So that essentially, as you move lower into those tiers, you ratchet up higher energy requirement thresholds. Next slide, please. So getting into the actual project here, why do we do a reach code tracking analysis? Well, we wanted to understand how or whether our new construction gear building codes were working as intended. So furthermore, our intentions can be summed up by the following questions. Are we seeing significant energy and GHG reductions, and how do they compare across jurisdictions? Are our codes being appropriately enforced? How can we make this a replicable and scalable analysis, not only for our jurisdiction, but for other jurisdictions to use? How are building codes affecting change as delineated across the diverse code types that I showed you in the county? And for electric preferred reach codes specifically, what pathway did projects take and why? So next slide, please. Before the analysis took place, we ensured we stated a hypothesis to test against, right? I think it was important because this is such a unique study that you can come up with so many questions and get lost in the data. So our hypothesis statement was more aggressive green building energy conservation requirements will result in more building energy and GHG savings. Next slide, please. So I think quickly, our methodology that we use is for data collections, before I show the results, we acquired and merged residential new construction data from two of the home energy rating system providers, HERS providers in California. So thanks to BayREN for helping us purchase the data from CalSearch and Cheers. Oops.
Sorry, I got a phone call.
Sorry.
There we go.
There you go.
Brian, by the way, we have about
5
minutes left. So just
oh, wow. Okay. Okay, so let me just go through this. So for analysis, we also use the data to target interviews of specific architects to dive deeper projects. We use Power BI to process, visualize, and analyze the data. Some of the limitations or caveats of what you're about to see is total time dependent valuation was available for both 2016 and 2019 code cycles, and energy design rating only for 2019. Hence, we decided to use TDV to compare countywide compliance margin across the code cycles and only use the 2019 EDRs to compare compliance margins across jurisdictions. So let's see. The other caveat is because of incomplete 2019 data on actually completed projects and design and what was actually installed, we decided we had to only assess projects according to what they designed. So for those of you who are familiar with HERS registry, this is just looking at CR1R data. Next slide, please. So the following slides are just preliminary view of the findings, and I emphasize preliminary as it's just an analysis. It's still in progress, and you all are getting a sneak preview. So two things, again, that you'll see here is understand the impact of reach codes across code cycles and the impact of 2019 electric preferred reach codes. So next slide, please. All right, so here's the impact of our reach code countywide. We are finding enhanced energy efficiency requirements did result in increased energy savings amongst a sample size of 288 residential new construction buildings. The bigger the compliance margin number, the better the energy efficiency performance. So again, this is according to what was designed. So the compliance margin for 2019 code cycle is about 10 points higher at 18 units. Next slide, please. So here's sort of the impact of reach code across different buckets that I showed with Cal Green Tier 1 with energy that has energy efficiency requirements performing the best. and those CalGreen tier 1 with no energy efficiency requirements, as well as just minimum code Title 24 not performing as well. However, across all code types, there was an improvements in the compliance margins. You notice that under electric preferred, it is second to CalGreen tier 1 with the energy efficiency requirements. So this doesn't mean the code is not performing as intended, whereas all other codes simply focus on ratcheting down energy use. Electric preferred also tries to ratchet down GHG emissions by favoring all electric appliances. Next slide. So we're going to dive into that next slide. So looking specifically at the jurisdictions, including County Marin, how we performed on energy design rating compliance margin. We're just looking at 2019. We all performed about the same. So this is a sample size of 68. So we weren't done here in analyzing the information. We'd like to dive deeper into the electric preferred reach code. So next slide, please. And next slide, please. So what we did was use the data and leverage it to target projects to conduct interviews. Essentially, out of the 68 electric preferred projects across the county, we looked at 32 specifically for unincorporated Marin, and then conducted 13 interviews. Thank you, Kellen, for conducting those interviews, in which we determined or found out there was 5 that went all electric of those projects. So next slide, please. In summary, the question we're trying to answer, our 2019 electric preferred reach codes increasing electric adoption in the county of Marin. Our preliminary findings, again, pending further interviews. For the 3 pathways, all electric, 5 of the projects went all electric with no gas, limited mixed fuel. That means no natural gas or space water heating. For space or water heating, or just gas cooking and fireplace allowed. 8 of them of the 32, and a combination of gas and electric projects, 19 of 32. Next slide, please. And I think I'll just wrap it up after this slide. And so our key findings from the top bottom, our enhanced reach codes were effective at reducing energy use according to design countywide. A majority of our County Marin 2019 residential new construction projects still opted for gas install. So that was about 59%. Nonetheless, about the rest, 41%, still opted to at least install all electric space and water heating conditioning. In terms of the data, it was very difficult to obtain. It's inconsistent, needs cleaning. And since the analysis is unique, you never know which you have until you look deeper. So it was important to having a hypothesis statement to test against. Lastly, compliance documentation enforcement, as our previous speakers mentioned, needs to improve and streamlined. As we dug deeper in the interviews, we realized we didn't get the information we needed from our permitting information, so we had to conduct the interviews. And in those in the interviews that we conducted, the architects, and we found that of all the projects that went all electric, the architects and design team were basically ones driving the all electric choices. And one architect quoted 9 out of our 10 clients still wanted gas cooking. So that's a big, everyone's very attached to it. So hypothesis we're testing against, still pending. Wow, a lot of information. So in the near term, we're still finalizing our data and conducting remaining targeted interviews. In the midterm, we're going to hopefully produce a final report by February 2022 and use that data to inform our stakeholder decisions to right-size our code green building updates this coming code cycle. In the long term, we hope to update this data set to include actually completed installations. And lastly, make analysis useful and scalable to other jurisdictions. That's still pending. Sorry I went over time, but thank you everyone for your time. Next slide.
Great. Thanks, Brian.